This is Land of Havilah, Amos 6. Yahweh says he'll destroy Israel. About 9 in 10 will die, and the rest will be carried away captive beyond Damascus. This came to pass for the northern kingdom within about 40 years, and for Judah within about 180 years. Now Yahweh goes on, verse 1. Woe to those who are at ease in Zion, and to those who are secure on the mountain of Samaria, the notable men of the chief of the nations, to whom the house of Israel come. Comment in verse 1, there are two locations, Zion and the mountain of Samaria. Zion is the mountain on which Jerusalem was built, and the mountain of Samaria, that on which the city of Samaria was built. One was the capital of Judah, the other the capital of the northern kingdom. In verse 1, Yahweh is addressing those who are at ease and secure in both places, the notable men of the chief of the nations, those to whom the house of Israel come. So Yahweh is addressing the elite leadership class of Israel being the chief of the nations by Yahweh's design. Therefore, their leadership should be the world authorities on how it should be done, yet they're derelict in their duty and don't see any spiritual crisis, don't see destruction coming. Meanwhile, the people are counting on them to be the cover over the nation, to foresee any problems and fix anything before it happens. In an attempt to snap the elites out of their stupor, Yahweh says, verse 2, Go to Calneh and see, and from there go to Hamath the great, then go down to Gath of the Philistines. Are they better than these kingdoms, or is their border greater than your border? Those who put far away the evil day and cause the seat of violence to come near, who lie on beds of ivory and stretch themselves on their couches, and eat the lambs out of the flock and the calves out of the middle of the stall, who strum on the strings of the harp, who invent for themselves instruments of music like David, who drink wine in bowls and anoint themselves with the best oils, but they are not grieved for the affliction of Joseph. Therefore they will now go captive with the first who go captive, and the feasting and lounging will end. Comment in verse 2, Yahweh tells the complacent leadership of Judah and of the northern kingdom to go to Calneh, Hamath, and Gath and see what? He doesn't say, but we might suppose those kingdoms have been overrun recently, and Yahweh's asking them what's the difference between them and you. Looking into it, the kingdom of Hamath fell to the Assyrians in 738 BC, which was fairly early, and the kingdom was destroyed in 720. As to the kingdom of Calneh, it's not even certain where that was, but assuming it was the same region the Assyrians conquered and called Colonia, that fell in 738 also. As to Gath, it was damaged way back in 830 by Aram Damascus, but it didn't fall to the Assyrians until 711, which was after Samaria fell. So history somewhat supports that those kingdoms were recently overthrown. Therefore, verse 2 would be something like, Look what's happened to those kingdoms. Why can't the same happen to you? Are you better than they were? Weren't they actually stronger and more impressive than you? Don't you worship idols just like them? Why shouldn't I, Yahweh, be as displeased with you as I was with them and overthrow you like them? Then in verses 3 to 7, Yahweh says, You put far away the evil day, meaning you suppose the evil day is far away. You cause the seat of violence to come near, meaning you cause a day to approach when violence will rule the land. You lie on beds of ivory, stretch yourselves on couches, eat lambs and stall-raised calves, strum on harps, invent new musical instruments, drink wine by the bowl, anoint yourselves with the most expensive skin treatments. This is how you spend your time, you elite class, when it's your responsibility to do something about your nation's affliction. Therefore, you'll be the first to go into captivity, and the feasting and lounging will come to an end. We can be assured it happened exactly as Yahweh said, that in the forced marches of the captives that took them far beyond Damascus, the elite of them went out first. With the mention of Joseph in verse 6, it seems the focus is mostly on the northern kingdom and the city of Samaria again, yet Yahweh keeps circling back to Judah as well. Yahweh says, verse 8, The Lord Yahweh has sworn by himself, says Yahweh, the God of armies, I abhor the pride of Jacob and detest his fortresses. Therefore I'll deliver up the city with all that's in it. It will happen if there remain 10 men in one house that they shall die. When a man's relative carries him, even he who burns him, to bring bodies out of the house, and asks him who is in the innermost parts of the house, Is there yet any with you? And he says, No. Then he'll say, Hush, indeed we must not mention Yahweh's name. Comment in verse 8, Since Yahweh has no one higher to swear by, he swears by himself. Hebrews 6:13. What does he swear? He swears he hates Israel's pride. He swears he hates Israel's fortresses. Why? Because Israel trusts in their fortresses, but not in him. Since they build fortresses, they're clearly concerned about defense, but they don't look to Yahweh for defense. Therefore, he'll deliver up the city of Samaria and all that's in it. In verse 9, and we can mark it down that it'll happen just this way, there'll be a siege of the city, and as an example of what will happen throughout the city, 10 men will be in one house. The houses will be crowded because everyone in the countryside will flee to the fortified cities. This will include Samaria, the city. The city will be overcrowded. When the siege of Samaria drags on and there's pestilence, famine, and death, in a house where there were 10 men, they'll start dying, and when only one is left, someone coming in the house to remove bodies will ask the one, Is there anyone left alive in this house besides you? When the man in the house says no, the other will say something like, Yahweh have mercy. And the man of the house will say, Hush, we must not mention Yahweh's name. The point is they have no fear of Yahweh today while they assume there's no problem, while they're fat and happy and luxuriating, but when death besets them all around, then they'll develop a fear of Yahweh when it's too late. They'll be afraid to even mention his name for any reason. The fulfillment of verses 8 to 10 is recorded in 2 Kings chapter 17. The Assyrians besieged Samaria city for 3 years until it fell. Verse 11. For behold, Yahweh commands, and the great house will be smashed to pieces, and the little house into bits. Do horses run on the rocky crags? Does one plow there with oxen? But you have turned justice into poison, and the fruit of righteousness into bitterness. You who rejoice in a thing of nothing, who say, Haven't we taken for ourselves horns by our own strength? For behold, I will raise up against you a nation, house of Israel, says Yahweh, the God of armies, and they will afflict you from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of the Arabah. Comment in verse 11, Isn't it true that if Yahweh commands every house to be destroyed, every house will be destroyed from the greatest to the least? In verse 12, when there's a rocky crag, no one tries to run a horse on it. No one hitches up a team of oxen and tries to plow it. These are examples of madness, and it's just as mad that Israel renders injustice rather than justice and unrighteousness rather than righteousness. Why produce bitter poison instead of fruit? Yet that's what Israel does. In verse 13, it seems the World English Bible missed it a little bit. We gather from other translations, Israel was proud they conquered 2 cities across the Jordan, one named Lo-Debar, which literally means nothing, sort of like naming a town Nothingsville, and the other town they conquered had the proud name Karnaim, which means double horn. A horn is an animal's pride, joy, strength, power, offense, and defense. They brag about conquering Lo-Debar, which ironically means nothing, and they brag about conquering double horn, saying, We showed them who has the horns, didn't we? They'll stop their ridiculous boasting when Yahweh causes them to be conquered. For in verse 14, Yahweh will raise up a nation against them that will afflict them from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of the Arabah, which is the far north to the far south. Amos 7 is next.